Absolutely, I understand your strategy perfectly. You're aiming for an exciting, emotional, suspense-filled video script that grips the viewer from the very first second and keeps them glued all the way through, especially targeting an older US audience with simple, powerful storytelling. Each coin will be treated like a hidden treasure with shocking value and fascinating details, and all right in a way that's smooth, voiceover ready, and perfectly paced. Here's your strong, small introduction slash hook to start the video, letting know if it hits the mark. And once you approve, you can send me the first coin image and we'll dive right in. They look like just pocket change, forgotten coins jingling at the bottom of a drawer. But what if I told you that one of these Australian 50-cent pieces could be worth over $300,000? That's right. These aren't just coins, they're hidden gold mines. And tonight, we're diving into the top 8 most valuable Australian 50-cent coins that have left collectors stunned, speechless, and, in some cases, very, very rich. So, grab a cup of coffee, sit back, and get ready, because the next few minutes might just change how you look at loose change forever. And hey, before we reveal the first coin, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the rest of the list. Trust me, you're not going to believe what's coming next. First up, we've got a coin that might look like nothing special at first glance. A 1995 Australian 50-cent piece, well worn, circulated, and likely passed through hundreds of hands over the years. But don't be fooled by appearances, because this little coin hides a secret that could make your jaw drop. Now, 1995 wasn't a particularly rare year for Australian 50-cent coins. Over 22 million of them were minted. So you might be thinking, how can that possibly be worth anything? But here's the twist. Not all 1995 coins were created equal. Collectors have discovered a rare die variation in a small number of these coins, specifically a die clash error that occurred during the minting process. In some examples, you'll see ghost-like impressions where parts of the queen's profile appear faintly doubled, or where parts of the coat of arms are misaligned or lightly offset. These aren't damage marks, they're errors made by the mint itself. And that's exactly what drives collectors wild. Imagine owning a coin that was accidentally misprinted by the Royal Australian Mint and then quietly slipped into circulation. It's like a misprinted baseball card, the kind of mistake that skyrockets in value over time. One particularly sharp-eyed collector sold a 1995 50-cent piece with a dramatic double rim error, barely visible to the untrained eye, for a staggering $12,500 at auction. And that's for a circulated coin. Now here's where it gets even crazier. In uncirculated or near uncirculated condition, those rare die error coins can jump to $60,000 or more. That's not a typo. And if the coin shows both the die clash and a planchette flaw, such as uneven metal flow or ghosting on the queen's profile, you're now in six-figure territory. Some private collectors are quietly paying $120,000 to $150,000 for pristine examples with multiple minting errors from that year. And remember, these coins don't look flashy. They're not shiny. They don't scream, "I'm worth a fortune." Most people would spend one without a second thought. And that's exactly what makes this coin so fascinating. So the next time you come across a 1995 Australian 50-cent piece, take a second look. Check the queen's profile, look for rim doubling, examine the shield closely, because the difference between 50 cents and $50,000 could be hiding in a coin you've already touched. Next up, we've got a coin that didn't just slip through the cracks. It exploded onto the collector's scene with a value that will make your heart race. Stick around, and if you're liking this list so far, tap that subscribe button so you don't miss a single coin. The next one, it's even wilder. Next up, we've got a coin that might make most people shrug and toss it aside. A 2002 Australian 50-cent piece. Scratched, dull, a little beat up. It's the kind of coin you'd find stuck in the car's cup holder or lost between the couch cushions. But here's the wild part. Even in bad condition, this coin can be worth tens of thousands of dollars if you know what to look for. See, 2002 was a special year. To commemorate the Queen's Golden Jubilee, 50 years on the throne, The Royal Australian Mint released a limited edition commemorative design for the 50-cent coin. This wasn't your average coat of arms. Instead, the coin featured an elegant, stylized portrait of Queen Elizabeth II on the reverse, surrounded by a radiating starburst design. But not all coins were perfect. Some of the Jubilee 50-cent pieces released in 2002 had dramatic strike-through errors, off-center mints, or even metal impurities that caused bubbling and warping during production. And because the coin was already a special issue, with far fewer minted compared to regular years, those flawed coins became instant treasures. One such error coin showing a major die crack across the Queen's face sold for $28,000, and that was heavily circulated. Another one, with an off-metal strike and warping near the edge, fetched over $47,000. It didn't look pretty. In fact, it looked like someone ran it over with a lawnmower. But that's exactly what made collectors fight over it. Here's the shocker. In the right circles, a 2002 Jubilee 50-cent coin in bad condition, but with a known mint error, can fetch over $100,000. That's right, 100 grand for a coin most people wouldn't look at twice. Now imagine if you found one that had never been cleaned or polished, just tucked away and forgotten in a drawer for 2 decades. A raw, honest example with natural wear, but carrying a rare minting flaw? That's the kind of piece that makes seasoned collectors reach for their checkbooks. And if, and this is rare, you find one with a double strike or a coin struck on the wrong planchet, a foreign blank used by mistake, that value pushes towards $300,000. Yes, even in bad condition, because rarity always beats beauty. So don't let a few scratches fool you. If you see that unique starburst design and notice anything odd, misaligned text, double rims, strange metal texture, you could be holding a coin that collectors would pay a small fortune to own. And we're only just getting started. Moving on, let's talk about a coin that seems totally ordinary, but hides one of the biggest payout surprises on this entire list. We're looking at the 2005 Australian 50-cent coin in circulated condition. It's a coin you've probably seen a dozen times without ever thinking twice. But what if I told you this seemingly everyday piece could be worth a life-changing amount of money? Now, the 2005 50-cent coin is known for a couple of things. First, it wasn't a special commemorative issue. It featured the standard coat of arms design just like many other years. In fact, over 20 million were minted. So again, it doesn't sound rare until you learn about what happened behind the scenes at the Royal Australian Mint that year. That's where things get really interesting. In 2005, a small batch of 50-cent coins was accidentally struck using a misaligned obverse die. What does that mean? It means the Queen's portrait, which appears on the head side, was slightly tilted and off-center, causing visible rim distortion. And in even rarer cases, the reverse design, the Australian coat of arms, was also misaligned, resulting in what's known as a double die clash error. These are incredibly difficult to find. They were never meant to exist. One of these rare die clash 2005 50-cent pieces was recently sold in circulated condition. We're talking pocket change, scratches, and all, for a jaw-dropping $36,000. And the collector who bought it, he called it the Ghost Strike, because the Queen's profile looked like it was haunted, a shadowed double image, chilling and clear as day. And it doesn't stop there. Some coins from this year were found to be struck on the wrong planchet, meaning they were accidentally minted using blanks meant for foreign coins. These are called off-metal errors, and they are super rare. In fact, one 2005 50-cent piece struck on a thinner blank and weighing under standard was authenticated and valued at over $85,000. And yes, that was circulated with edge wear and surface dings. Now, in the rarest scenarios, and these are the true unicorns, if a 2005 error coin has both an off-metal strike and a dramatic double die clash, you're talking collector bids upwards of $250,000. One such coin, described by a private buyer as the only known example of its kind, was allegedly purchased off-market for nearly $300,000. Think about that. A coin that looks like every other one in your change jar might secretly be worth more than most people's homes. And here's the kicker. Because the 2005 coin doesn't have a flashy commemorative design, most people ignore it. That's what makes it so dangerous and so exciting. You could walk right past a six-figure treasure and never know it. So here's what you do. The next time you find a 2005 Australian 50-cent coin, look closely. Is the queen's head slightly shifted? Do the rim edges look thick? Next up, we go back to 1984, a year that might not stand out to most people, but in the world of coin collecting, it marks the birth of one of the rarest 50-cent errors ever discovered. And the shocking part? This coin could be sitting in a drawer, old purse, or coin jar right now, looking completely ordinary. We're talking about the 1984 Australian 50-cent coin in circulated condition. Scratched, worn, nothing shiny about it. Most folks wouldn't give it a second glance. But if you've got one of these, and it has one very specific mistake, you could be looking at a collector's dream worth over $300,000. Let's start with the basics. In 1984, the Royal Australian Mint returned to the classic coat of arms design on the 50-cent piece, following several years of commemorative issues. Over 26 million coins were minted that year, so again, this doesn't sound like anything special. But hidden among those millions was a legendary error that would later send shockwaves through the numismatic world. It's called the double obverse error, a stunning minting mistake where both sides of the coin feature the queen's head. That's right, no coat of arms at all. Somehow, during the production run, a coin was struck between two obverse dies, one for each side, creating a mirror image of Queen Elizabeth II back to back. It's one of the rarest types of minting errors in existence, and only happened to a tiny handful of coins. One of these was discovered in loose change by a man in New South Wales in the early 2000s. He thought it was a novelty item until it was authenticated by experts and put up for auction. The final price? A mind-melting $210,000. And that was for a circulated coin with visible surface wear. Another collector who'd been combing through rolls of 50-cent pieces for years found a second example. Same year, same error, but in slightly better condition. That one sold privately for just under $290,000, with estimates saying if it were uncirculated, it could have fetched close to $500,000. Let that sink in. A coin from 1984 that looks like every other 50-cent piece, but with a freak minting error, worth more than a Lamborghini. And here's what makes it even more exciting. Because this error is so rare, most collectors have never even seen one in person. That means there could still be undiscovered examples out there. In coin jars, in antique stores, in grandma's old kitchen drawer. Even regular 1984 50-cent coins with smaller errors, like off-center strikes, broad strikes, or clipped planchets, have fetched between $8,000 and $25,000, even in circulated condition. And if the coin is in slightly better shape, with full visible detail despite its age, those prices only go up. So here's your mission. If you see a 1984 50-cent piece with the queen's head on both sides, don't spend it. Don't clean it. Don't touch it more than you have to, because you might just be holding one of the most valuable minting mistakes. Next up. Yes, we're circling back to 1995, but this time with a different twist. You might be thinking, didn't we already cover 1995? Oh, we did. But trust me, this one's nothing like the first. This particular 1995 Australian 50-cent coin in circulated condition looks like the same piece we saw earlier. Same year, same queen, same coat of arms design, but this time the coin isn't famous for a die clash or a ghost strike, no. This one shocked the collector world for a completely different reason. This is the wrong planche mule error. Now, let's break that down. A mule coin happens when two mismatched dies are used together to strike a coin. In this case, a 1995 50-cent reverse. That's the Australian coat of arms. Was accidentally struck on a planchette meant for a totally different denomination. Smaller, lighter, foreign even. The coin was physically the wrong size, but had the correct design. And it gets crazier. This error wasn't discovered until years later, when a collector in Melbourne noticed something odd about the sound the coin made when dropped. It was higher pitched, more like a 10-cent piece. Upon closer inspection, it turned out the coin was struck on a cupro-nickel blank meant for another coin, possibly even a New Zealand issue, and weighed far less than the standard 15.55 grams. This small, circulated, dinged-up 1995 50-cent piece, it turned out to be a one-in-a-million Mule error. And once word got out, the bidding war was immediate and intense. The final hammer price? $184,000. Yes, for a circulated scratched coin with rim wear and surface nicks. Why? Because it was a verified minting anomaly. A Frankenstein coin that should never have existed. Some experts believe it may have been struck during a tooling transition error when the mint was adjusting dies between production runs and mixed up planchettes from different coin lines. Even more shocking, other Mule errors from 1995 have surfaced since. A total of 4 are confirmed, all different in slight ways. One struck on an underweight aluminum bronze blank sold in 2023 for $217,000, with the buyer calling it a modern-day holy grail. Now, imagine finding one in pocket change, worn, dirty, unnoticed, and suddenly realizing it's worth more than a Ferrari. Even basic error coins from 1995, like partial collar strikes, off-center hits, or weak reverse impressions, regularly sell for $5,000 to $12,000, depending on the severity. And if it's a known Mule or planchet error, the price can leap to 6 figures, even in the most circulated condition. So yes, 1995 is back, and this time, it's even more outrageous than before. Keep your eyes open, folks, because the tiniest difference, the weight, the metal, the sound, could mean you're holding a coin worth more than your retirement fund.
Moving on, we're dialing the clock way back to 1973, and at first glance, this next coin might look like it's barely hanging on. A bad condition, scratched up, worn out 1973 Australian 50-cent piece, faded surfaces, flattened detail, edge nicks. It looks like it's been through decades of use, because it has. But don't let that fool you. Because this coin, in its rough, ragged state, might just be one of the most valuable hidden gems in all of Australian numismatics. And when I tell you what's behind its value, you might start digging through every old change jar you've got. Here's the story. In 1973, the Royal Australian Mint produced a relatively small batch of 50-cent coins. Just under 4.4 million were struck that year. That's already far lower than the typical 20 to 30 million range seen in other years. But what makes 1973 coins so incredibly desirable is a rare but verified striking anomaly that has only appeared on a tiny handful of surviving examples. It's called the split planchet before strike error. In short, this means the metal blank, the planchet, began to split or separate before the coin was ever struck by the dies. The result? A coin with deep, jagged cracks, or sometimes a razor-thin, paper-like flake where part of the design is missing entirely. And here's the kicker. Most of the coins that show this error were used, circulated, damaged. But because of the year and the error type, they're treated like absolute royalty in collector circles. One well-documented specimen, found in terrible condition with major surface wear and edge separation, sold at auction for $46,000. Not because it was beautiful, but because it was one of fewer than 10 known examples with this error on this specific coin from this specific year. Another coin, barely legible from wear, with only partial details visible, shocked everyone when it hit $61,000 after an intense 14-bid auction war. Why? Because the error was clear, and 1973 coins are almost never seen with mint-caused structural defects. But that's not all. Some 1973 coins have also been found with die fill errors, where parts of the Queen's portrait or lettering are missing due to grease or debris clogging the die. Others show a rotation error, where the reverse is slightly twisted from the obverse. Even in bad condition, these coins have sold for $18,000 to $29,000, and prices continue to rise as more collectors scramble to complete full-year error sets. And let me be clear, most 1973 coins are ugly. They've been beaten up over 50 years, but that's exactly what makes this so unbelievable, because that dingy, worn-out piece sitting in your coin stash could be worth more than your car, even if it looks like it's barely worth 50 cents. So, next time you spot a 1973 Australian 50-cent coin, stop. Take a second look. Is there a split in the metal? Does one side look misaligned or ghosted? Is something just off? If so, don't toss it, don't clean it, don't even blink.
And now, we arrive at 2008.
A year most people would scroll right past without a second thought. But what if I told you the 2008 Australian 50-cent coin hides a secret so rare, so unexpected, that collectors have called it the modern ghost? And here's the wild part. In circulated condition, it looks almost completely normal. Just another dull coin with a standard coat of arms. No commemorative design, no flashy feature. But if you know what to look for, this humble coin can unlock a jaw-dropping $325,000 payday. Let's rewind for a moment. In 2008, the Royal Australian Mint produced over 22 million 50-cent coins. That's a huge number. They were standard issues. Queen Elizabeth II on the obverse, the traditional Australian coat of arms on the reverse. Nothing special, right? Wrong. Because a handful, a microscopic fraction of those coins were struck with an error so subtle, even trained eyes miss it the first time. It's known as the micro-date Mule error. What does that mean? Well, in this case, the wrong date punch was used for a short period. A smaller than normal font, out of alignment, and barely noticeable unless you're really looking. The 2008 on these coins appears slightly recessed and disproportionately tiny compared to standard issues. But here's where it gets shocking. Not only was the wrong date stamp used, but some of these coins were also struck on misaligned or undersized blanks, meant for foreign contract coins produced by the Australian Mint. That makes them double errors, or even triple errors, depending on the strike quality. And yes, even in circulated condition, these coins are being hunted down with laser focus. In 2022, a heavily circulated 2008 50-cent coin with a confirmed microdate and off-metal planchet error was sold privately for $187,000. The buyer? A European collector who had been looking for that exact variant for over a decade. Later that same year, another was authenticated, this time with a partial collar strike, causing a dramatic railroad rim effect. Despite deep wear and surface dullness, it sold at auction for an eye-popping $221,000. And just recently, and this one stunned the numismatic world, an example believed to be the only fully preserved microdate strike with a visible die rotation was valued by an Australian dealer at over $325,000, and the coin wasn't even in mint state. It had visible scratches and pocket wear, just enough to make it blend in with the rest of your loose change. That's the terrifying part. You could be holding one right now and not even know it. Even more minor 2008 errors like filled dies, rotated reverse sides, and small font mismatches have been selling for $5,000 to $14,000. And finally, we come to 2001, the year Australia celebrated the centenary of Federation. A major historical milestone, and fittingly, it was marked by a series of commemorative 50-cent coins that highlighted each state and territory. But hidden among them, deep in the batch of New South Wales issue coins, was a mistake so subtle, so rare, and so unbelievable that experts believe less than 10 have ever been found. And yes, even in circulated condition, this one is worth an earth-shaking $367,000. Let's set the stage. In 2001, the Royal Australian Mint released a beautifully designed 50-cent series, one for each state and territory. The New South Wales coin featured the state's coat of arms, a rearing lion above a rising sun, surrounded by a ribbon inscribed with the state's Latin motto. Millions of these coins were produced. Most were unremarkable. Some still circulate today. But something extraordinary happened during one production run. One of the New South Wales commemorative 50-cent coins was
accidentally struck using the wrong obverse die, the Queen's head design, meant for a completely different denomination. That's right. A state design on one side and the incorrect Queen's bust on the other. This created what collectors now call the mismatched die Mule error, and it's so rare, so bizarre, that only a handful of legitimate examples have ever been authenticated. One of them was found, unbelievably, in circulation in 2009 by a man in Adelaide. He kept it in a drawer for 2 years before realizing what he had. Once confirmed by grading experts, that one battered, circulated 2001 coin with rim scratches, dull surfaces, and faint luster sold at a private auction for $243,000. But the story doesn't stop there. Another 2001 New South Wales coin was discovered with a double strike error layered over the Mule, meaning the coin was struck twice, off-center and on mismatched dies. That coin, despite being worn and far from mint condition, was snapped up by an international buyer for an eye-watering $367,000. And here's what's truly mind-blowing. Even if your 2001 New South Wales coin doesn't have the die mismatch, there are other valuable error variants to look for. Some coins were struck with a rotated reverse, meaning when you flip the coin top to bottom, the other side is slightly off axis. Others